The dress had taken 3 weeks to finish. Ivy knew this because she had counted every single day, watching her mother hunched over the worn wooden table, needle between her fingers, tired eyes blinking in the dim candlelight. There was no money for new fabric, so they used what they had, a cream linen that had belonged to her grandmother, unstitched and sewn again with the patience of someone who had nothing else to offer but time. Her mother had embroidered small flowers along the hem, flowers so tiny they almost seemed part of the fabric itself, as if they had always been there. "You'll look like a lady," her mother had said the night before, smoothing the shoulder of the dress with her palm. Ivy hadn't answered. She had swallowed the knot in her throat and smiled. Now she stood in the corridor leading to the great hall of Clan Ashvale, and the dress weighed differently than she had expected, not because of the fabric, because of what it represented. The mating ceremony of Clan Ashvale happened once every full lunar cycle, when the moon reached its highest peak, and the wolves' instincts grew sharper, more honest. It was the moment when bonds were acknowledged before the entire pack, when a male chose his companion publicly, before the elders, the warriors, the children, and the servants. There was no undoing a choice made under the full moon, and witnessed by all. It was a law older than any alpha who had ever governed those lands. Cole Ashvale had promised to choose her. Not in those exact words, it was true. But he had said, 3 weeks before, leaning against the wooden fence separating her property from the forest, pale eyes blinking with something she had decided to call intention. "Come to the ceremony, Ivy. Come wearing the most beautiful dress you have." She had interpreted that as a promise. Perhaps because she needed to. Cole was the son of Clan Ashvale's beta. Not a pure-blood alpha, but he had standing. He had a name. He had the kind of presence that opened space in a room, and Ivy had none of that. She was the daughter of a widowed seamstress who lived on the edge of the territory, far from the main houses, far from the families with crests and documented bloodlines. She was barely considered a full member of the pack, more of a tolerated dependent than a recognized she-wolf. But Cole had looked at her as if she were something more, or at least that was what she had chosen to believe. The corridor smelled of burning resin and wine spilled on cold stone. The torches on the walls cast orange light over the clan banners hanging high above, each one with its symbol embroidered in silver thread. Ivy walked slowly, keeping her chin up, shoulders back, the way her mother had insisted. "You have just as much right to be there as any of them." Her mother believed that. Ivy tried to. The hall was full. She hadn't expected so many people. The families of 3 neighboring clans had come as guests, something unusual for a regular Ashvale ceremony. There had been rumors, caught in low conversations over the past few days, that something larger was happening, that there were visitors from outside, that the Alpha King himself had sent representatives. Ivy hadn't paid much attention to those rumors. She had been thinking about the dress. Now, standing at the entrance of the hall, she saw that the rumors had been modest. They weren't the Alpha King's representatives. It was the Alpha King. She recognized him without ever having seen him before, the same way one recognizes a storm before hearing the thunder. He was the man standing near the main fireplace, tall, broad shoulders inside a black surcoat without excessive ornaments, as if he needed no gold to prove what he was. His face had firm lines, a closed expression, dark eyes sweeping the hall with the particular calm of someone who had never needed to look for danger, because danger had always moved away first. Adrian Voss, Alpha King of the Northern Lands, ruler of 7 clans, the man whose name mothers used to settle restless children, and whose seal closed treaties that lasted decades. He was there. And around him, 2 men whom Ivy identified as brothers by the way they occupied space, each different but clearly from the same origin. One was younger, an easy smile, arms crossed with a lightness that seemed calculated. The other leaned against the stone column with his thumbs on his holster strap, pale eyes that never stayed still. Ivy looked away. "That's not why you're here." She looked for Cole. She found him near the elders' table, in a new shirt with his hair combed, and for a second her heart made room for hope again. He looked handsome. He was there. She moved carefully between groups of people, smiling at whoever crossed her path, trying to look as if she belonged in that place. Ivy. It was Seren, her best friend since childhood, appearing from nowhere with a cup of wine in her hands and wide eyes. "You came," Seren said, and there was a strange tone in her voice, something between relief and unease. Of course I came. Ivy adjusted the shoulder of her dress. Cole told me to come. Seren's face shifted in a small, almost imperceptible way. Ivy. Everything's fine, Seren. I just think you should know that the music began. It wasn't exactly music. It was the sound of ritual drums. 3 deep beats echoing off the stone, warning that the ceremony was about to begin. The entire hall reorganized itself, people opening space for the center, where the elders' circle was marked on the floor with salt and ash. Ivy stayed where she was, in the middle of the crowd, heart quickening. Cole walked toward the circle, and beside him, hand in hand with the daughter of Clan Thornwall's Alpha, was the answer to the question Ivy hadn't had the courage to ask. The silence that settled inside her was different from any silence she had ever felt. It wasn't the silence of waiting. It was the silence of understanding. The girl was everything Ivy was not. Tall, from a well-known family, with a crest on the ring she wore on her finger. Cole looked at her with the eyes Ivy had thought were hers, and then the elder began to speak. And the ritual words fell through the air like stones into still water. I acknowledge this bond. I choose this companion before my pack. Ivy didn't move. She felt Serene place a hand on her arm, but she couldn't look at her friend. She kept her eyes on the center of the hall, on the couple being acknowledged while the salt was spread in an arc around them, while the drums beat again, and the pack responded with guttural sounds of approval. 3 weeks. Her mother had stayed up 3 weeks. She breathed slowly. She was not going to cry. Not here. Not in front of 3 clans and the Alpha King of the Northern Lands. She would leave with dignity, or she would not leave at all. I need some air, she said quietly to Seren, and began walking toward the side exit before her friend could respond. The crowd didn't part easily. She wove through slowly, excusing herself in a low voice, trying not to run, trying not to let any of the tears that were building pressure behind her eyes fall before she made it outside. She was almost at the exit when she walked into someone. It wasn't the kind of collision that happens from distraction. It was the kind that happens when someone walks with their head too low and the other person doesn't move, because they had never learned to step aside. She raised her face. It was the pale-eyed man, the one who had been leaning against the column.